Not tonight. Not anymore. Victoria delivered those words while brushing her teeth, casual as someone declining dessert. I stood in our bedroom doorway, watching her reflection in the bathroom mirror. 23 years of marriage, and she announced the end of our physical relationship like she was updating a subscription policy. Got it, I said. Message received. Her eyes met mine in the mirror for exactly 2 seconds before returning to her dental routine. No explanation, no discussion of terms, no negotiation period. Just a unilateral declaration that intimacy had reached its expiration date. I walked downstairs to my home office, poured 3 fingers of bourbon, and sat in the leather chair Victoria bought me for our anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me, drinking alone in furniture purchased during happier times, contemplating a marriage that apparently ended while I was brushing my own teeth. My name is Thomas Mercer. I'm 45 years old, a freelance business consultant who works from home. Victoria is 42, creative director at Pinnacle Advertising, and until tonight, I thought we had a decent marriage. Not perfect, but functional. We raised our daughter Alex, who's now at Northwestern studying journalism. We attended neighborhood barbecues, paid our mortgage on time, and maintained the suburban facade that keeps property values stable. The bourbon burned, but not as much as the realization that Victoria had been planning this conversation. Her tone carried the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed the delivery, tested different phrasings, maybe even discussed it with her best friend Trina during their weekly wine sessions. I opened my laptop and started typing. Not work, a journal entry. Something about documenting the moment when your life pivots without warning seemed important. Day 1. Victoria has officially closed the physical chapter of our marriage. Her decision, her timing, her terms. She looked relieved afterward, like someone who'd finally canceled a service they'd been meaning to drop for months. The house felt different immediately. Not smaller or larger, just recalibrated. 23 years of shared space suddenly divided into his and hers territories, with neutral zones for necessary interactions. The kitchen would become Switzerland. The bedroom, apparently, was now entirely hers. My phone buzzed. Alex, texting from her dorm room. Dad, can you send me the recipe for your famous chili? My roommate wants to try making it. I smiled, despite everything. Alex always called it famous, though the only fame it achieved was winning our neighborhood cook-off 3 years running. Simple pleasures, back when Victoria still ate my cooking without checking her phone between bites. We'll send tomorrow. How are classes? Brutal but good. Professor Martinez says I have potential for investigative journalism. Apparently I ask uncomfortable questions. Wonder where you got that trait. Mom says from you. Dad says from Mom. I blame genetics and good parenting. The conversation continued for 20 minutes, Alex sharing stories about campus life, professors, and the boy she definitely wasn't dating, but mentioned every other sentence. Normal father-daughter communication, the kind Victoria used to join before her phone became permanently attached to her palm. When Alex signed off, the house settled into silence. Victoria had finished her bathroom routine and closed the bedroom door. Not slammed. Victoria never displayed raw emotion when subtle gestures accomplished the same goal. The soft click communicated volumes about new boundaries and sleeping arrangements. I finished the bourbon and climbed the stairs. The guest bedroom hadn't been used since Victoria's mother visited last Christmas, complaining about our thermostat settings and questioning why we didn't own a coffee maker that required engineering degrees to operate. The sheets smelled like storage and disuse. Lying in the narrow bed, staring at ceiling fixtures I'd never noticed before, I processed Victoria's declaration. Not tonight, not anymore. The phrasing suggested this wasn't temporary frustration or stress-related distance. This was permanent policy, effective immediately. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my brother Martin, probably wanting to discuss our father's upcoming birthday. Martin lived in Chicago, managed a successful law firm, and maintained the kind of marriage where his wife still laughed at his jokes after 15 years. He'd want details about party planning, gift coordination, and whether Victoria's famous potato salad would make an appearance. I'd call him back tomorrow, after I figured out how to explain that Victoria had unilaterally restructured our relationship without prior consultation or appeals process. Sleep came eventually, interrupted by the sound of Victoria's alarm at 6:30. Her morning routine continued unchanged: shower, coffee, quick breakfast while checking emails, goodbye called from the front door without waiting for response. The same schedule she'd maintained for years, except now it felt like watching a neighbor prepare for work rather than sharing morning rituals with a spouse. I made coffee after her car disappeared down our street. Strong coffee, the kind Victoria complained was too bitter, but I'd always preferred. Small freedoms, I supposed. The newspaper lay on our front steps, delivered by the same teenager who'd been throwing it slightly left of center for 3 years. I'd stopped mentioning the placement issue to Victoria months ago, when her responses became increasingly brief and distracted. The front page featured local politics, school board controversies, and a feature about new businesses opening in our area. EV Fitness had purchased the old department store space downtown, promising state-of-the-art equipment and personal training services. The owner, photographed beside impressive weight machines, looked like someone who'd never struggled with motivation or self-doubt. I studied his picture longer than necessary. Ethan Voss, according to the caption. Mid-30s, confident smile, the kind of physical condition that suggested fitness was both profession and passion. The article mentioned his background in competitive athletics and philosophy about helping clients achieve their best selves. Interesting timing for a gym to open, just when I'd been considering lifestyle changes. My coffee grew cold while I planned the day ahead. Client calls scheduled for 10 and 2, a proposal deadline Thursday, and the usual administrative tasks that keep freelance consulting profitable. Routine work that suddenly felt insufficient, fulfilling the hours between Victoria's departure and return. The house phone rang at 9:15, Victoria's voice, crisp and professional. Thomas, I forgot to mention, Trina and I are having dinner tonight. I'll be home late. How late? Not sure. We're trying that new place on Elm Street, and you know how Trina likes to talk. I did know. Trina Morrison had been Victoria's closest friend since college, a marketing executive who treated every conversation like focus group research. She analyzed relationships, careers, and social dynamics with the intensity most people reserved for tax preparation. Her own marriage had ended 2 years ago, after which she'd become increasingly vocal about the limitations of traditional romantic partnerships. Should I wait up? Don't bother. I'll try not to wake you when I get in. The line disconnected before I could respond. Victoria had developed efficiency in communication that eliminated unnecessary pleasantries. No goodbye, no expression of affection, just information transfer and connection termination. I returned to my office and opened the client files. Henderson Manufacturing needed restructuring recommendations for their distribution network. Straightforward analysis, the kind of project I could complete while my brain processed more complex personal equations. But concentration proved elusive. Victoria's words echoed through every calculation. Not tonight, not anymore. The finality bothered me more than the rejection itself. This wasn't temporary frustration or periodic distance that married couples navigate. This was permanent policy implementation without stakeholder consultation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Tom, this is Janet from the Neighborhood Association. We're organizing the annual block party. Can you and Victoria handle beverage coordination like last year? Janet Henderson lived 4 houses down and treated neighborhood events like military campaigns. Her organizational skills were legendary, her attention to detail exhausting, and her memory for volunteer commitments absolute. Last year, Victoria had enthusiastically accepted beverage responsibility, then delegated actual work to me while she handled creative oversight. I typed back, "We'll need to check with Victoria and get back to you." "Great. Need confirmation by Friday. Thanks." Another obligation requiring coordination with a spouse who just announced our relationship's new operational parameters. I wondered if Victoria had considered how her declaration would affect routine married couple responsibilities, or if she expected me to handle logistics while she managed appearances. The morning client call went well. Henderson Manufacturing's owner appreciated direct communication and practical solutions. We discussed implementation timelines, cost projections, and potential obstacles. Professional conversation with clear objectives and measurable outcomes, refreshingly different from personal relationships where goals remained undefined and success metrics changed without notice. During lunch, I walked through our neighborhood. Suburban streets lined with mature trees, well-maintained lawns, and houses that suggested financial stability without ostentation. The Morrison house sat empty since Trina's divorce, a "for sale" sign planted in her former flower garden. She'd moved to a downtown apartment, claiming she needed energy and excitement after years of suburban predictability. Maybe that explained her influence on Victoria's recent attitudes. Trina had been vocal about her newfound freedom, the relief of making decisions without consulting another person, the joy of eating dinner at 9 p.m. or breakfast at noon without considering someone else's preferences. Liberation through separation, she called it. I completed the neighborhood loop and returned home as Victoria's car pulled into our driveway. She emerged carrying shopping bags from stores I didn't recognize, her expression pleasant but distant. "How was work?" I asked. "Busy. We landed the Riverside Development account. Big project, lots of late nights ahead." She moved past me toward the stairs, bags in hand. "What did you buy?" "Clothes for the new account. Client meetings require professional appearance." Victoria disappeared upstairs, leaving me in the foyer with questions I apparently wasn't supposed to ask. New clothes for new clients suggested image updates I hadn't been consulted about. Another unilateral decision in what seemed to be a pattern of independent action. The afternoon client call proved more challenging. Riverside Manufacturing needed operational efficiency improvements, but their owner resisted suggestions that required significant change. Some people preferred familiar problems to unfamiliar solutions, even when familiar problems were destroying their business. I understood the psychology. Change required admitting current approaches weren't working, accepting that comfortable routines might be counterproductive, and trusting that different strategies could produce better results. Easier to maintain status quo and hope circumstances improved spontaneously. At 6:30, Victoria appeared in my office doorway, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Black, fitted, the kind of outfit she'd typically reserve for important client presentations or special occasions. "I'm meeting Trina now," she announced. "New dress?" "Part of the professional wardrobe update. Image matters in advertising." She looked good. Better than good, actually. The dress emphasized curves that years of marriage had made familiar, but not unappreciated. Her hair was styled differently, too, more contemporary than the conservative cut she'd maintained throughout our marriage. "You look nice," I said. "Thank you." No reciprocal compliment, no suggestion I join them, no indication when she might return. Just acknowledgement of my observation and preparation for departure. "Enjoy dinner." "I will." Victoria left without goodbye kisses or casual touches that had once punctuated our daily separations. The front door closed with the same soft finality as the bedroom door the night before. I ordered pizza and spent the evening reviewing client files, trying to focus on other people's business problems instead of analyzing my own relationship dynamics. The pizza arrived at 8, delivered by a college-aged kid who seemed surprised that a suburban house order was for one person on a Friday night. "Wife's out with friends," I explained, though he hadn't asked. "Cool, man. Enjoy the pizza." Simple interaction, no judgment or analysis required. I ate half the pizza while watching a documentary about corporate restructuring, taking notes on strategies that might apply to client situations. Professional development disguised as entertainment, the kind of evening Victoria would have found boring, but I genuinely enjoyed. At 11 p.m., Victoria still hadn't returned. Trina's conversations were legendary for their duration, but 4.5 hours seemed excessive even by her standards. I texted Victoria, "Hope you're having fun. Don't worry about waking me." No response. Midnight came and went. I brushed my teeth, changed into sleep clothes, and settled into the guest bedroom that was apparently now my permanent sleeping quarters. The mattress felt different than our king-size bed, firmer and less familiar. I stared at the ceiling, listening for Victoria's car in the driveway. At 12:45 a.m., headlights swept across the guest room window. Victoria's Honda pulled into our garage, the automatic door closing behind her with mechanical precision. I heard her enter through the kitchen, move through the house with careful quietness, and climb the stairs to our bedroom. Her door closed softly. No check to see if I was awake, no acknowledgement of the late hour, no explanation for the extended evening. Just another boundary established through action rather than discussion. I lay in the narrow bed, processing the day's events. 24 hours since Victoria's declaration, and our marriage had already reorganized itself around her new parameters. Separate bedrooms, independent schedules, minimal communication beyond logistical necessities. Not tonight, not anymore, was proving more comprehensive than I'd initially understood. Saturday morning arrived with Victoria's shower running at 7 a.m., despite her usual weekend sleep-in routine. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching our backyard through windows that needed cleaning. The lawn required mowing, flower beds needed weeding, and the deck stain was peeling in several places. Maintenance tasks that married couples typically discussed and coordinated. Victoria appeared 20 minutes later, dressed for exercise in clothing I'd never seen before, matching athletic wear in colors she'd never previously worn, shoes that looked expensive and recently purchased. "Going to the gym," she announced, pouring coffee into a travel mug. "Which gym?" "That new place downtown, EV Fitness. They have a special opening promotion." The same gym featured in yesterday's newspaper article. Convenient timing for Victoria's sudden interest in physical fitness, especially considering she'd spent our entire marriage claiming she hated exercise and preferred yoga videos at home. "Since when do you go to gyms?" "Since I decided to prioritize my health. Is that a problem?" Her tone carried defensive edges that suggested this topic wasn't open for discussion. Another unilateral decision, another change implemented without consultation. "No problem, just surprised." People change, Thomas. Sometimes we discover interests we didn't know we had. She left without further explanation, backing out of our driveway with the focused determination of someone with important appointments to keep. I watched her car disappear around the corner, then returned to my coffee and the growing list of household tasks that apparently now fell entirely under my jurisdiction. The phone rang at 9:30. Martin's voice, cheerful and energetic. "Tommy, how's suburban paradise treating you?" "Can't complain." "Good to hear. Listen, I've been thinking about Dad's birthday party. Sarah wants to coordinate with Victoria about decorations and food. Should I have her call directly?" Sarah was Martin's wife, an interior designer who approached party planning with professional thoroughness. She and Victoria had collaborated successfully on family events, combining Victoria's creative vision with Sarah's organizational skills. "Victoria's pretty busy with work lately. Maybe email would be better?" "Everything okay? You sound tired." Martin had always been perceptive about emotional undercurrents. Growing up, he'd been the brother who noticed when I was upset before I'd fully recognized the feeling myself. Lawyer training had probably sharpened those instincts. "Just adjusting to some changes. Nothing dramatic." "Changes like what?" I hesitated. How do you explain that your wife has unilaterally restructured your marriage without making it sound like either self-pity or relationship gossip? Victoria's going through a phase. New interests, new routines. We're figuring out how to accommodate her evolution. Sounds like midlife crisis territory. Sarah went through something similar a few years ago. Suddenly wanted to learn pottery and redecorate every room in our house. Cost me a fortune, but she worked through whatever she needed to work through. How long did it last? About 8 months. Then she decided pottery was boring and our house was perfect the way it was. Women are mysterious creatures, Tommy. Sometimes you just have to ride out the storm. Martin's interpretation offered hope that Victoria's current phase might be temporary, midlife adjustment, rather than permanent relationship restructuring. I wanted to believe that explanation, even though Victoria's declaration had sounded more definitive than exploratory. Any advice for surviving the storm? Give her space to figure out what she needs, but don't disappear completely. Sarah said the worst part was feeling like I didn't care about her journey. Show interest without being intrusive, support without enabling. It's a delicate balance. We talked for another 20 minutes about family logistics, work projects, and Martin's ongoing battle with his teenage son's attitude problem. Normal brother conversation that temporarily distracted me from analyzing my own situation. After Martin hung up, I tackled yard work with unusual enthusiasm. Mowing the lawn, trimming hedges, weeding flower beds that Victoria had planted but gradually lost interest in maintaining. Physical labor that produced visible results, unlike the emotional work required to navigate marriage complications. Mrs. Patterson from next door waved from her garden, where she was trimming spent rose blooms with surgical precision. "Thomas, your lawn looks wonderful. Victoria must be pleased with your landscaping skills." "Thanks, Mrs. Patterson. Just trying to keep up with the neighborhood standards." "Well, you're succeeding. I saw Victoria leaving early this morning. New exercise routine?" Mrs. Patterson had lived next door for 12 years and maintained encyclopedic knowledge of neighborhood activities. Not malicious gossip, just the natural curiosity of someone whose primary entertainment came from observing suburban life. She joined a gym downtown, trying to stay healthy. Good for her. I keep telling Harold we should be more active, but he claims yard work counts as exercise, men and their rationalizations. She laughed and returned to her roses, leaving me to contemplate whether my sudden interest in yard work qualified as rationalization or genuine productivity. Victoria returned at noon, flushed and energetic in ways I hadn't seen for months. Exercise endorphins probably, though she looked more radiant than typical gym sessions usually produced. "How was the workout?" I asked. "Excellent. The facilities are impressive, and they have personal trainers who really know their business." "Personal trainer on your first visit?" "Complimentary consultation, part of the new member package." She moved through the kitchen with animated energy, drinking water and checking her phone with more frequency than usual. Whatever had happened at EFE Fitness had clearly exceeded her expectations. "I'm taking a shower, then meeting Trina for lunch," she announced. 2 days in a row with Trina? "We're planning a girls' trip. Weekend getaway to that spa in the mountains. Trina says I need to treat myself better." Another new development. Another plan made without consultation. Victoria had never expressed interest in spa weekends, claiming they were expensive indulgences for women with too much time and too little purpose. "When's this trip happening?" "Next weekend. Trina's handling the reservations." Victoria disappeared upstairs, leaving me to process this latest evolution. Gym memberships, personal trainers, spa weekends with recently divorced friends who advocated for female independence. The pattern was becoming clearer, though I wasn't sure whether to be concerned or relieved that Victoria was pursuing interests outside our marriage. I spent the afternoon organizing my office, filing client documents, and updating project timelines. Productive work that created order from chaos, unlike my personal life where chaos seemed to be increasing daily. At 4 p.m., Victoria reappeared wearing another outfit I didn't recognize. Casual but stylish, the kind of clothes she'd typically reserve for special occasions or important social events. "Lunch is running long," she called from the foyer. "Don't wait for me for dinner." "What time should I expect you?" "Not sure. Depends on how the conversation goes." The front door closed before I could ask what conversation required such flexible timing. Victoria's Honda disappeared down our street for the second time that day, leaving me alone with questions and the growing realization that my wife's schedule was becoming increasingly independent of our shared life. I ordered Chinese food and spent the evening reading, occasionally checking my phone for messages that didn't arrive. Victoria's absence felt different than typical social evenings with friends, more deliberate, less casual, like she was establishing new routines that didn't include me as even peripheral consideration. At 10 p.m. I texted, "Hope you're having fun. See you tomorrow." No response. At 11:30, Victoria's car returned. I heard her enter through the garage, move through the house with practiced quietness, and settle into our bedroom. No conversation, no explanation for the extended evening, no acknowledgement that I might have been wondering about her whereabouts. Sunday morning brought similar patterns. Victoria rose early, dressed for the gym, and departed with minimal communication. I attended church alone, something I hadn't done since before our marriage. The service felt different without Victoria beside me, more solitary but also more focused on personal reflection rather than social appearances. Reverend Matthews approached me after the service, his expression concerned but respectful. "Thomas, good to see you. Is Victoria feeling well? We've missed her the past few Sundays. She's exploring new interests, fitness routine, time with friends. You know how it is." "Of course. Personal growth is important. Please give her our regards and let her know she's always welcome, whatever schedule works for her." Reverend Matthews had counseled married couples for 30 years and probably recognized relationship transitions when he observed them. His diplomatic response suggested experience with spouses who attended church separately during challenging periods. I drove home through neighborhoods that looked different when experienced alone. More details visible, fewer distractions from conversation or shared observations. Victoria's absence was becoming a presence itself, defining experiences by what was missing rather than what remained. Victoria returned from her gym session at noon, again displaying the energetic glow that seemed to accompany her EV fitness visits. "How was church?" she asked, though her tone suggested polite inquiry rather than genuine interest. "Fine. Reverend Matthews sends his regards." "That's nice." She moved through the kitchen with efficient purpose, gathering items for another departure. "Trina and I are finalizing spa weekend details. We're driving up to look at the facilities. Today? Just for a few hours. Research trip." Victoria left for the third time in 2 days, establishing a pattern of brief appearances between extended absences. Our house was becoming a hotel where she occasionally stopped to change clothes and collect necessities. I spent Sunday afternoon reviewing client proposals and planning the week ahead. Henderson Manufacturing needed follow-up consultation. Riverside Development required preliminary analysis, and 2 potential new clients had requested project estimates. Professional obligations that provided structure when personal life felt increasingly unmoored. At 6 p.m., I called Martin. "Tommy, twice in one weekend. Either you're lonely or something seriously wrong. Maybe both. Talk to me." I explained Victoria's new routines, her sudden interest in fitness and spa weekends, her increasingly independent schedule and minimal communication. Martin listened without interruption, occasionally making thoughtful sounds that suggested he was processing implications. "How long has this been going on?" "Intensified since Friday, but the signs were building for weeks, maybe months if I'm honest." "And she hasn't offered any explanation beyond personal growth and health priorities?" "Nothing substantial. Every conversation feels like information transfer rather than actual communication." Martin was quiet for several seconds, probably applying legal analysis to relationship dynamics. "Tommy, I hate to ask this, but Have you considered the possibility that Victoria's changes might involve someone else? The question I'd been avoiding crystallized in my brother's careful words. Victoria's new clothes, extended absences, energetic returns from gym sessions, and sudden friendship with recently divorced Trina, who advocated for female independence. The thought crossed my mind. What does your gut tell you? That something fundamental has changed, and I'm not being included in whatever process Victoria is going through. Trust your instincts. They're usually reliable, even when we don't want to believe what they're telling us. We talked for another hour about possibilities, strategies, and the importance of gathering facts before drawing conclusions. Martin's legal training emphasized evidence over suspicion, documentation over assumption. After we hung up, I sat in my office contemplating the past 3 days. Victoria's declaration about physical intimacy, her new gym membership, extended social activities, and increasingly independent lifestyle. Individual elements that might be innocent, but collectively suggested patterns worth investigating. Victoria returned at 9 p.m., entering through the garage with the quiet efficiency that had become her standard approach. I met her in the kitchen, where she was checking her phone while drinking water. How was the spa research? Productive. We booked rooms for next weekend. Sounds like you're really looking forward to it. I am. Trina says I need to prioritize self-care. Marriage can be consuming if you're not careful about maintaining individual identity. Her words carried implications that extended beyond spa weekend planning. Marriage as something that consumed, rather than nourished, individual identity as something requiring protection from spousal influence. I've never tried to limit your individual identity. Not intentionally, but couples can fall into patterns where they stop growing as separate people. Trina helped me recognize that I'd been defining myself primarily through our relationship. Trina's influence was becoming increasingly apparent in Victoria's evolving philosophy. Recently divorced Trina, who'd discovered liberation through separation and was apparently sharing those insights with married friends. So the gym membership and social activities are about rediscovering individual identity? Partly. Also about exploring interests I'd neglected during our marriage. There's nothing wrong with personal growth, Thomas. I never said there was. Victoria studied my expression with analytical attention, like she was evaluating my response for signs of resistance or control. Good, because I intend to continue exploring who I am beyond being your wife. She left the kitchen and climbed the stairs to our bedroom, closing the door with the soft finality that had become our new normal. I remained in the kitchen, processing her words and their implications for our marriage's future direction. Not tonight. Not anymore was revealing additional layers of meaning. Not just physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy, shared decision-making, and collaborative life planning. Victoria was systematically establishing independence from our partnership while maintaining the legal and social structure of marriage. I poured bourbon and returned to my office, where I opened a new document on my computer and began typing. Day 4. Victoria's individual identity exploration continues. Gym memberships, spa weekends, extended social activities with divorced friends who advocate for female independence. She's redefining marriage as something that potentially constrains rather than enriches personal growth. I'm apparently a supporting character in her journey of self-discovery rather than a partner in shared evolution. Question. Is this temporary midlife adjustment or permanent relationship restructuring? Evidence needed. Documentation of patterns, verification of stated activities, assessment of whether Victoria's changes involve outside influences beyond Trina's divorced woman wisdom. Next steps. Investigate EV fitness, monitor communication patterns, determine whether Victoria's new interests align with her stated explanations. I saved the document and closed the laptop. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to gather information and assess whether my marriage was experiencing temporary turbulence or permanent transformation. Outside, our neighborhood settled into Sunday evening quiet. Porch lights illuminated driveways where couples probably sat together watching television or planning the week ahead. Normal married life that Victoria and I had once shared, but apparently no longer valued equally. Monday morning established new routines with mechanical precision. Victoria rose at 6:30, showered, dressed for work, and departed by 7:45. Minimal conversation beyond logistical necessities, no casual touches or goodbye rituals that had once punctuated our daily separations. I watched her car disappear around the corner, then called EV Fitness. "Good morning, EV Fitness. This is Stephanie. How can I help you?" "Hi, I'm interested in membership information. My wife Victoria just joined, and she's been raving about the facilities." "That's wonderful. We love hearing positive feedback. What specific information can I provide?" "I'm particularly interested in personal training services. Victoria mentioned the trainers are exceptional." "They absolutely are. We have 5 certified trainers on staff, each specializing in different fitness approaches. Would you like to schedule a consultation?" "Maybe. Could you tell me about the trainer who worked with Victoria? She was impressed with the initial consultation." "Let me check our records. Victoria Mercer, correct?" "That's right." Keyboard sounds, then a pause. "I see she worked with Ethan, our head trainer. He's fantastic. Former competitive athlete, specializes in comprehensive fitness transformation, very popular with our female clients." Ethan, the same name from the newspaper article, the gym owner who'd been photographed beside impressive equipment. Victoria's personal trainer was also the business owner, which suggested either coincidence or deliberate selection. "Is Ethan available for new clients?" "His schedule is pretty full, but let me see what openings he might have. Could I get your contact information?" I provided my name and phone number, then scheduled a consultation for Wednesday afternoon. Legitimate research disguised as potential membership interest. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and searched for additional information about EV Fitness and Ethan Voss. The gym's website featured professional photos of modern equipment, group fitness classes, and staff profiles. Ethan's bio emphasized his competitive athletics background, certified training credentials, and philosophy about helping clients achieve their best physical selves. His photo showed someone in exceptional physical condition, mid-30s, confident smile, the kind of presence that probably attracted clients seeking motivation and expertise. Exactly the type of trainer who might appeal to women exploring personal transformation and individual identity development. I spent the morning working on client projects, but concentration proved challenging. Victoria's sudden interest in fitness, her energetic returns from gym sessions, and her new trainer's qualifications created questions that professional obligations couldn't entirely suppress. At noon, I drove past EV Fitness. The converted department store looked impressive from the outside, with large windows displaying modern equipment and motivational signage. Victoria's Honda wasn't in the parking lot, but her work schedule wouldn't typically include midday gym visits. I parked across the street and observed the facility for 20 minutes. Clients entered and exited with the focused energy of people committed to fitness goals. Several attractive women in expensive athletic wear, a few men who looked like serious athletes, and various individuals who appeared to be pursuing health improvements rather than competitive training. The kind of environment where personal attention from knowledgeable trainers would be valued and appreciated, where someone like Victoria might feel special and encouraged in ways that domestic life no longer provided. My phone rang. Henderson Manufacturing's owner, requesting schedule changes for our Thursday meeting. Professional conversation that temporarily redirected my attention from personal investigations. I returned home and spent the afternoon reviewing Riverside Development's operational requirements. Complex project that would require several weeks of analysis and recommendation development. Engaging work that typically absorbed my complete attention, though today proved different. At 5:30, Victoria's Honda pulled into our driveway. She entered through the garage carrying her gym bag, displaying the energetic glow that had become associated with EV Fitness visits. Good workout? I asked. Excellent. Ethan introduced me to interval training, much more effective than traditional cardio approaches. Ethan's your trainer? Head trainer, actually. He owns the gym, very knowledgeable about fitness science and motivation techniques. Victoria moved through the kitchen with animated energy, describing interval training benefits and Ethan's innovative approaches to strength building. More enthusiasm than she'd displayed about any topic in months. He sounds impressive. He really is. Former competitive athlete, but he understands that most clients aren't pursuing professional athletics. He customizes programs for individual goals and capabilities. Individual attention must be nice. It makes all the difference. Generic fitness programs don't work because everyone has different needs and motivations. Ethan takes time to understand what each client wants to achieve. Victoria's description emphasized personal attention and individual understanding, qualities that might be appealing to someone feeling overlooked or underappreciated in other areas of life. How often are you planning to work with him? 3 times per week initially. Ethan says consistency is crucial for achieving meaningful results. 3 sessions weekly with a trainer who provided individual attention and understood her specific needs. Victoria was investing significant time and energy in this new relationship, though she was framing it entirely in terms of fitness goals and health improvement. That's quite a commitment. Good things require commitment, Thomas. Ethan says most people fail because they're not willing to prioritize their goals consistently. She left the kitchen and headed upstairs, ending the conversation before I could ask additional questions. Victoria's enthusiasm for Ethan's wisdom and training philosophy suggested influence that extended beyond exercise instruction. I prepared dinner while processing this new information. Victoria's trainer was the gym owner, a former competitive athlete who specialized in individual attention and understanding client motivations. Someone who apparently provided encouragement and expertise that Victoria found compelling. At 7 p.m., Victoria reappeared wearing casual clothes and carrying her purse. I'm meeting Trina for coffee. We need to finalize spa weekend logistics. More planning required? Trina wants to coordinate transportation and meal arrangements. She's very thorough about travel details. Victoria left for her 3rd evening with Trina in 4 days, establishing a pattern of minimal home time between work, gym sessions, and social activities. Our house was becoming a place where she occasionally slept and changed clothes rather than a shared living space. I ate dinner alone while reviewing EV fitness information on my laptop. The facility offered various membership levels, personal training packages, and group fitness classes. Standard gym services, though their marketing emphasized individual attention and customized approaches to fitness transformation. Ethan's trainer profile included testimonials from satisfied clients, mostly women who praised his motivational skills and ability to help them achieve goals they'd previously thought impossible. Professional credentials looked legitimate, though his personal background remained limited to athletic achievements and training certifications. At 9 p.m., I called Martin. Tommy, 3 calls in 4 days. Either you're developing separation anxiety or Victoria's situation is getting more complicated. Probably both. I explained Victoria's gym membership, her enthusiastic trainer, and the increasing frequency of social activities with Trina. Martin listened with the focused attention he applied to client consultations. So, Victoria's spending 3 evenings per week at the gym with this trainer, plus regular social activities with her recently divorced friend who advocates for female independence. That's the current pattern. And she's displaying more energy and enthusiasm about these activities than she's shown about your marriage in recent months. Significantly more. Martin was quiet for several seconds, probably analyzing implications and potential outcomes. Tommy, I think you need to consider the possibility that Victoria's personal transformation involves more than fitness goals and individual identity exploration. You think she's having an affair? I think she's developing emotional connections outside your marriage that are providing satisfaction she's not finding at home. Whether that's crossed physical boundaries yet, I can't say, but the pattern suggests movement in that direction. What would you do? Gather more information before drawing conclusions. Document patterns, verify activities, determine whether Victoria's explanations align with observable facts. You mean investigate my own wife? I mean protect yourself from potential consequences of naivety. If Victoria is exploring options outside your marriage, you need to understand the situation before it progresses beyond your ability to influence outcomes. We discussed investigation strategies, legal implications, and the importance of maintaining emotional equilibrium while gathering facts. Martin's advice emphasized preparation over confrontation, evidence over suspicion. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and updated my documentation. Day 5. Victoria's trainer is Ethan Voss, gym owner and former competitive athlete who specializes in individual attention and client motivation. Victoria displays significant enthusiasm for his training methods and personal philosophy. She's scheduling 3 weekly sessions with him, plus continuing regular social activities with Trina. Observations. Victoria's energy and enthusiasm about gym activities exceeds her engagement with home life. She's investing substantial time and emotional energy in relationships outside our marriage. Next steps. Attend consultation at EV Fitness. Observe Victoria's interactions with Ethan. Determine whether her enthusiasm is purely fitness-related or involves personal attraction. Victoria returned at 10:30, entering through the garage with her usual quiet efficiency. I met her in the kitchen, where she was checking her phone while preparing for bed. How was coffee with Trina? Productive. We confirmed spa weekend reservations and discussed transportation arrangements. She's really committed to this girl's trip. Trina says women need regular breaks from domestic responsibilities to maintain perspective on their lives and relationships. Another piece of Trina's divorced woman wisdom, emphasizing the need for distance from marriage in order to evaluate its value. Victoria was absorbing philosophy that framed domestic life as potentially constraining rather than fulfilling. What kind of perspective is she hoping you'll gain? Clarity about what I want from life versus what I've been accepting because it seemed expected or convenient. Victoria's response suggested she was questioning fundamental assumptions about our marriage and her role within it. Not temporary midlife adjustment, but comprehensive reevaluation of life choices and future priorities. And you feel like you've been accepting things that don't align with what you actually want? I think many women do that, Thomas. We accommodate others' needs and expectations until we lose track of our own desires and goals. What desires and goals have you been neglecting? Victoria studied my expression with analytical attention, probably evaluating whether honest response would create conflict or resistance. I'm still figuring that out. That's why I need space to explore who I am when I'm not constantly considering how my choices affect someone else. She left the kitchen and climbed the stairs to our bedroom, ending another conversation before it could develop into meaningful dialogue. Victoria was systematically establishing emotional distance while maintaining the practical structure of our shared living arrangement. I remained in the kitchen, processing her words and their implications. Victoria wanted space to discover her individual desires without considering their impact on our marriage. She was treating our relationship as an obstacle to personal growth rather than a partnership that could evolve to accommodate both individual and shared goals. Not tonight, not anymore was revealing its full meaning. Not just physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy, collaborative decision-making, and mutual consideration of how individual choices affected shared life. Victoria was systematically divorcing herself from our partnership while maintaining the legal and social structure of marriage. I was becoming a roommate rather than a spouse, a practical convenience rather than an emotional connection. I poured bourbon and returned to my office, where I opened a new document and began planning my Wednesday consultation at EV Fitness. Time to meet Ethan Voss and observe the dynamic that was generating such enthusiasm in my wife. Wednesday afternoon arrived with unseasonable warmth and clear skies, perfect weather for investigating the fitness facility that had become central to my wife's personal transformation. I dressed in athletic clothes I'd purchased that morning, trying to look like someone genuinely interested in gym membership rather than a suspicious husband conducting surveillance. EV Fitness occupied an impressive space in the converted department store, with floor-to-ceiling windows that displayed modern equipment and motivational signage. The parking lot contained luxury vehicles mixed with practical cars, suggesting a diverse clientele with varying income levels, but shared commitment to fitness goals. I entered through automatic glass doors into a reception area that resembled an upscale hotel lobby more than a traditional gym. Polished floors, contemporary furniture, and walls decorated with photographs of athletic achievements and client success stories. "You must be Thomas," said the young woman behind the reception desk. "I'm Stephanie. Ethan's ready for your consultation." She led me through the main workout area, past rows of equipment where clients pursued various fitness activities with focused intensity. The facility was impressive, modern, clean, and professionally managed, the kind of environment where someone like Victoria might feel motivated to pursue health goals she'd previously neglected. Ethan Voss emerged from an office adjacent to the main workout floor, extending his hand with confident professionalism. Mid-30s, exceptional physical condition, the kind of presence that suggested both athletic competence and personal charisma. "Thomas, good to meet you. Stephanie mentioned your wife Victoria is already a member. How's she enjoying the experience?" "She's very enthusiastic. More energy than I've seen from her in months." "That's great to hear. Victoria's been working hard and making excellent progress. She mentioned you might be interested in joining our fitness community." Ethan's reference to Victoria suggested they'd discussed me during their training sessions. The casual familiarity in his tone implied conversations that extended beyond exercise instruction into personal topics. "I'm considering it. Victoria says you provide exceptional individual attention. Personal training is really about understanding each client's specific goals and motivations. Generic programs don't work because everyone has different needs and circumstances." He guided me through the facility, explaining equipment capabilities and training philosophies with the expertise of someone who genuinely understood fitness science. Professional knowledge combined with personal attention that would be appealing to clients seeking both results and encouragement. "Victoria mentioned you specialize in comprehensive transformation rather than just physical fitness." "Absolutely. True fitness involves physical, mental, and emotional components. Many clients discover that improving their physical condition gives them confidence to make positive changes in other areas of life." Ethan's approach emphasized holistic improvement that extended beyond exercise into personal development, the kind of training philosophy that might appeal to someone like Victoria, who was exploring individual identity and questioning established life patterns. We completed the facility tour and returned to his office, where he outlined membership options and training packages. Professional presentation, though I noticed several framed photographs on his desk that included attractive female clients in various social settings. Not inappropriate, but suggesting relationships that extended beyond formal trainer-client boundaries. "Victoria's been working with you 3 times per week?" "That's right. Consistency is crucial for achieving meaningful results. Victoria's very committed to her transformation goals." "Transformation goals?" "Physical fitness, obviously, but also developing confidence and personal strength. Many women discover capabilities they didn't know they possessed when they commit to challenging themselves physically." Ethan's description aligned with Victoria's recent emphasis on individual identity and personal growth. He was providing not just fitness instruction, but philosophical framework for questioning established patterns and exploring new possibilities. "She seems much more energetic lately." Exercise produces endorphins that improve mood and energy levels. But I think Victoria's enthusiasm also comes from finally prioritizing her own goals instead of always accommodating others' expectations. His comment revealed knowledge of Victoria's personal situation that extended beyond typical trainer-client relationships. They'd apparently discussed her marriage and her feelings about domestic responsibilities versus individual desires. She's mentioned feeling constrained by others' expectations? Ethan paused, probably recognizing that he'd revealed information Victoria might have shared in confidence. Many clients, especially women, discover they've been living according to others' priorities rather than pursuing their own interests. Part of personal training involves helping people identify what they actually want to achieve. And what does Victoria want to achieve? You'd have to ask her that question. My role is providing support and encouragement while she figures out her goals. Professional boundary, though his tone suggested he had opinions about Victoria's situation that he wasn't sharing with her husband. The kind of discretion that would make clients feel safe discussing personal topics during training sessions. I completed the consultation and scheduled a trial membership, providing legitimate reasons for future visits to observe Victoria's interactions with Ethan. As I prepared to leave, he offered additional insight. Thomas, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Victoria's made remarkable progress in a very short time. She's discovering strength and confidence that were always there, but maybe hadn't been encouraged to develop. I'm glad she's finding the experience rewarding. She is, and I think the positive changes in her fitness routine will benefit all aspects of her life, including your marriage. Ethan's comment carried implications that suggested he viewed Victoria's training as potentially improving our relationship rather than competing with it. Either genuine professional perspective or careful diplomacy designed to avoid appearing threatening to suspicious husbands. I left EV Fitness with mixed impressions. Ethan was clearly knowledgeable, professional, and skilled at providing the individual attention that Victoria found compelling. Whether his interest in her transformation was purely professional remained unclear, though his knowledge of her personal situation suggested conversations that extended beyond exercise instruction. I drove home and spent the afternoon reviewing client projects, though concentration proved challenging. My consultation had confirmed that Victoria was receiving significant personal attention from an attractive, charismatic trainer who understood her desire for individual growth and supported her questioning of established life patterns. At 5:30, Victoria's Honda pulled into our driveway. She entered through the garage carrying her gym bag, displaying the familiar energetic glow that accompanied EV Fitness visits. How was your workout? Excellent. Ethan introduced me to advanced strength training techniques. I'm lifting weights I never thought I could handle. Sounds challenging. It is, but Ethan says growth requires pushing beyond comfort zones. He's very encouraging about helping clients discover their capabilities. Victoria moved through the kitchen with animated energy, describing her training session with enthusiasm that exceeded her engagement in any conversation we'd had in months. By the way, I met Ethan today. Victoria stopped mid-sentence, her expression shifting from enthusiasm to surprise and something that might have been concern. You met Ethan? How? I scheduled a consultation at EV Fitness. You've been so positive about the experience, I thought I might join. You want to join my gym? Her tone carried resistance that seemed disproportionate to my stated interest in fitness improvement. Like I was intruding on territory she'd claimed for individual exploration. Is that a problem? Not a problem exactly, just unexpected. You've never shown interest in gym membership before. People change, Victoria. Sometimes we discover interests we didn't know we had. I used her own words from Sunday morning, watching her recognize the echo and process its implications. What did you think of Ethan? He seems knowledgeable and professional. I can see why you find his training approach effective. Victoria studied my expression with analytical attention, probably trying to determine whether my consultation had revealed information that might complicate her relationship with Ethan. "Did you discuss my training program?" "He mentioned you're making excellent progress and discovering capabilities you didn't know you possessed." "That's true. Ethan's very good at helping clients identify their potential." Victoria's response was careful, measured, like someone navigating conversation that might contain hidden dangers. "He also said your transformation goals extend beyond physical fitness into personal development. That's part of his holistic approach. Physical improvement often leads to increased confidence in other areas of life." "And you're finding that to be true?" "Definitely. I feel stronger and more confident than I have in years." Victoria left the kitchen and headed upstairs, ending the conversation before it could develop into deeper analysis of her transformation goals or Ethan's role in supporting them. I prepared dinner while processing the afternoon's observations. Ethan was providing Victoria with individual attention, professional expertise, and philosophical framework for questioning established patterns. Whether his interest was purely professional or involved personal attraction remained unclear, but Victoria's defensive response to my gym consultation suggested she valued the relationship and wanted to protect it from potential interference. At 7 p.m., Victoria reappeared, wearing another outfit I didn't recognize. Casual but stylish, the kind of clothes that suggested social activities rather than domestic evening at home. "Trina and I are having dinner, final spa weekend preparations." "More coordination required?" "Trina wants to discuss the weekend schedule and make sure we're both prepared for the various activities they offer." Victoria left for her fourth evening with Trina in 6 days, maintaining the pattern of minimal home time between work, gym sessions, and social activities. Our house continued serving as a place where she occasionally slept and changed clothes rather than a shared living space where we built connection and intimacy. I ate dinner alone while reviewing my notes from the EV fitness consultation. Ethan was clearly skilled at providing the individual attention and encouragement that Victoria found compelling. His training philosophy emphasized personal transformation that extended beyond physical fitness into confidence building and life evaluation. The kind of relationship that might be purely professional or might involve emotional connection that competed with marriage for Victoria's attention and affection. My consultation hadn't provided definitive answers, but it had confirmed that Victoria was investing significant time and energy in a relationship that provided satisfaction she wasn't finding at home. At 9:30 p.m., I received a text from Victoria. "Dinner running late. Don't wait up." No explanation for the extended evening, no estimated return time, no acknowledgement that I might be concerned about her whereabouts. Just information transfer that established her independence from domestic obligations and expectations. I spent the evening updating my documentation and planning next steps. Victoria's spa weekend with Trina would provide opportunity to verify whether her activities aligned with her stated explanations or whether her increasing independence involved deception about her actual whereabouts and companions. At 11:15 p.m., Victoria's car returned. I heard her enter through the garage, move through the house with practiced quietness, and settle into our bedroom. No conversation, no explanation for the 3-hour dinner, no acknowledgement that extended absences might affect our relationship dynamics. I remained in my office, contemplating the pattern that had emerged over the past week. Victoria's declaration about physical intimacy, her new gym membership and enthusiastic trainer, her increasing social activities with divorced friends who advocated for female independence, and her systematic establishment of emotional distance from our marriage. Individual elements that might be innocent, but collectively suggested a wife who was exploring options outside our relationship while maintaining the practical benefits of marriage. Not temporary midlife adjustment, but comprehensive evaluation of whether our partnership served her evolving individual goals and desires. Not tonight, not anymore, was proving more prophetic than I'd initially understood. Victoria was systematically divorcing herself from our emotional and physical connection while maintaining the legal and social structure of marriage. I was becoming a supporting character in her journey of self-discovery rather than a partner in shared growth and evolution. The question was whether this transformation was permanent and what I intended to do about it. Friday morning arrived with Victoria's excitement about the spa weekend reaching levels I hadn't witnessed since our early dating years. She packed carefully, selecting clothes and accessories with the attention someone might apply to preparing for important social occasions, rather than relaxation retreat with female friends. "What time is Trina picking you up?" I asked. 10 o'clock. We want to arrive early enough to enjoy the full spa experience. Victoria moved through our bedroom with animated energy, folding clothes and checking items off a written list she'd apparently prepared in advance. More organization than she typically applied to routine travel, suggesting this weekend held special significance. "How long is the drive?" "About 2 hours. Trina researched the route and made reservations for lunch at a restaurant halfway there. Sounds like she's planned every detail. Trina's very thorough about travel arrangements. She wants to make sure we maximize the relaxation benefits." Victoria's description emphasized Trina's planning role, though her own enthusiasm suggested personal investment that exceeded typical responses to friend-organized activities. At 9:45, Trina's silver BMW pulled into our driveway. I watched from the living room window as she emerged wearing expensive casual clothes and designer sunglasses, looking like someone preparing for luxury weekend rather than simple spa retreat. Victoria grabbed her overnight bag and headed for the door, then paused and returned to give me a brief kiss on the cheek, the first physical contact she'd initiated since her "not tonight" declaration. "Have a good weekend," she said. "You too. Enjoy the spa treatments." "I will. Trina says I deserve to be pampered." Victoria left with energy I hadn't seen directed toward our marriage in months, climbing into Trina's BMW with the enthusiasm of someone embarking on adventure rather than routine girls' trip. I watched them drive away, noting that Trina's car headed toward the highway entrance that would take them north toward the mountains, consistent with Victoria's stated destination. Initial verification that their departure aligned with explained plans. I spent Friday afternoon working on client projects and planning weekend activities that would provide cover for investigating Victoria's actual whereabouts. If the spa weekend was legitimate, my concerns were probably overreaction to normal midlife adjustment. If Victoria was being deceptive about her destination or companions, I needed evidence before confronting her about dishonesty. At 6 p.m., I called the Mountain View Spa Resort, the facility Victoria had mentioned as their weekend destination. "Good evening, Mountain View Spa. How may I help you?" "Hi, I'm trying to reach my wife, Victoria Mercer. She's staying there this weekend with her friend Trina Morrison. Could you connect me to their room?" "Let me check our guest registry. I don't see reservations under either of those names for this weekend." "Could you check again? They made reservations recently for a girls' spa weekend." "I've checked all our current guests, sir. No one by those names is registered with us." I thanked the desk clerk and hung up, processing this first concrete evidence that Victoria had lied about her weekend plans. She wasn't at Mountain View Spa with Trina, which meant she was somewhere else, possibly with someone else, engaging in activities she didn't want me to know about. I called Martin immediately. "Tommy, what's wrong? You sound stressed." Victoria lied about her weekend plans. She said she was going to Mountain View Spa with Trina, but the resort has no record of reservations under either name. "Are you sure you have the right spa?" Victoria specifically mentioned Mountain View Spa Resort in the mountains. I called directly and confirmed they have no guests registered under Victoria or Trina's names. Martin was quiet for several seconds, probably processing the implications of confirmed deception. "So, Victoria is somewhere else this weekend, with unknown companions, engaging in activities she felt necessary to lie about. That's what the evidence suggests." "Tommy, I think you need to accept that Victoria is probably having an affair. the pattern of behavior, the deception about her whereabouts, the emotional distance from your marriage. These are classic indicators of someone who's involved with another person. With Ethan? Possibly. Or someone else entirely. The specific identity matters less than the fact that Victoria is prioritizing relationships outside your marriage and lying to cover her activities. We discussed investigation options, legal implications, and emotional strategies for dealing with confirmed betrayal. Martin's advice emphasized documentation over confrontation, evidence gathering over emotional reaction. After we hung up, I updated my documentation with the spa resort information, then began planning weekend activities that would provide additional verification of Victoria's actual whereabouts. Saturday morning, I drove past EV Fitness. The parking lot contained fewer cars than weekday visits, but I recognized several vehicles belonging to regular clients. Ethan's black Mercedes was parked in the space marked owner, suggesting he was working despite weekend schedule. I parked across the street and observed the facility for 30 minutes. Various clients entered and exited, but no sign of Victoria or Trina. If Victoria was spending the weekend with Ethan, they weren't meeting at his gym. I drove through our neighborhood, noting which houses showed signs of weekend activity versus travel absence. Normal suburban Saturday, with families washing cars, children playing in yards, and couples working on home improvement projects. The kind of domestic scene Victoria and I had once shared, but apparently no longer valued equally. At noon, I received a text from Victoria. "Spa treatment's amazing, very relaxing. Hope your weekend is going well." I responded, "Glad you're enjoying yourself. Weather's beautiful here." Trina says hello. She's getting a massage now. Tell her I said hi. Victoria's texts provided alibis for her claimed activities while maintaining communication that suggested normal spa weekend with female friend. Careful deception designed to prevent suspicion while covering actual activities. I spent Saturday afternoon researching local hotels and resorts within reasonable driving distance, calling establishments that might attract couples seeking privacy for romantic weekends. Most required guest names for room connections, making verification difficult without more specific information. At 6 p.m., I drove past Ethan's address, which I'd located through property records available online. His apartment complex was upscale, with gated entry and luxury vehicles in the parking garage. The kind of residence that would appeal to successful professionals and provide privacy for personal activities. I couldn't access the building without resident permission, but I noted license plates in the visitor parking area. No sign of Victoria's Honda or Trina's BMW, though they could be parked in the secured garage if Victoria was actually spending the weekend with Ethan. Saturday evening passed slowly. I ordered pizza, watched a movie, and tried to focus on client work, but concentration proved impossible. Victoria was somewhere, with someone, engaging in activities she'd felt necessary to lie about. The uncertainty was almost worse than confirmed betrayal would be. At 10 p.m., Victoria texted, "Early bedtime after full day of treatments. Trina's already asleep. Talk tomorrow. Sleep well. Love you." No response to my expression of affection, which had become typical of Victoria's recent communication patterns. Emotional distance maintained even during deceptive contact, designed to provide alibis for undisclosed activities. Sunday morning brought another text from Victoria. "Checkout is noon, driving home after lunch, should be back by 4. Drive safely, looking forward to seeing you." Again, no response to my expression of care or anticipation. Victoria was maintaining the practical aspects of spousal communication while eliminating emotional content that might create guilt or complicate her deceptive activities. I spent Sunday morning organizing evidence I'd gathered over the past week. Victoria's gym membership and enthusiastic trainer, her increasing social activities with divorced friends, her establishment of emotional distance from our marriage, and now confirmed deception about weekend whereabouts. The pattern was clear. Victoria was systematically exploring options outside our marriage while maintaining the practical benefits of our shared life. Not temporary midlife adjustment, but comprehensive evaluation of whether our partnership served her evolving individual goals. At 4:15 p.m., Victoria's Honda pulled into our driveway. She emerged carrying her overnight bag and wearing clothes I'd seen her pack Friday morning, looking relaxed and refreshed in ways that suggested an enjoyable weekend. "How was the spa?" I asked. "Wonderful. Very restorative. Trina was right about needing regular breaks from routine." Victoria moved through the house with calm energy, unpacking her bag and describing various treatments she'd supposedly received. Detailed descriptions that suggested either legitimate spa experience or carefully researched alibis. "What was your favorite treatment?" "The hot stone massage, very therapeutic for muscle tension. Trina loved the facial treatments." "Sounds like you both got what you needed." "We did. Trina says women should prioritize self-care more consistently instead of always accommodating others' needs and schedules." More wisdom from divorced Trina about the importance of individual priorities over domestic obligations. Victoria continued absorbing philosophy that framed marriage as potentially constraining rather than supportive of personal growth. "Did you and Trina have time to talk about her divorce experience?" Victoria paused in her unpacking, probably recognizing that the question touched on sensitive territory. "Some. Trina's learned a lot about independence and self-advocacy since her separation." "What kind of lessons?" "That women often accept situations that don't serve their best interests because they're afraid of change or concerned about others' reactions to their choices." Victoria's response revealed the philosophical framework she was developing for evaluating our marriage. Not partnership that could evolve to meet changing needs, but situation that might constrain her individual growth and require abandonment rather than adaptation. "And you think those lessons apply to your situation?" "I think all women should regularly evaluate whether their relationships support their personal growth or limit their potential." Victoria finished unpacking and headed upstairs, ending the conversation before it could develop into analysis of how her evaluation might affect our marriage's future. I remained in the kitchen, processing her words and their implications. Victoria was systematically preparing philosophical justification for major life changes, possibly including ending our marriage if she concluded it constrained her individual development. "Not tonight, not anymore," was revealing its ultimate meaning. Not just physical and emotional intimacy, but the entire structure of our partnership. Victoria was conducting comprehensive review of whether marriage to me served her evolving goals and desires. I poured bourbon and returned to my office, where I updated my documentation with weekend observations and began planning next steps. Victoria had lied about her spa weekend, which confirmed she was engaging in activities she didn't want me to know about. The question was whether to confront her about the deception or continue gathering evidence until I had complete understanding of her actual activities and intentions. Martin's advice emphasized preparation over confrontation, evidence over emotional reaction. Victoria was clearly planning something, and I needed to understand her complete strategy before deciding how to respond. The investigation was entering a new phase. Victoria had revealed willingness to lie about her whereabouts, which suggested her exploration of options outside our marriage was becoming more serious and potentially more threatening to our shared future. Time to determine exactly what Victoria was planning and how far she was willing to go to achieve her individual transformation goals. Monday morning established the new normal with mechanical precision. Victoria rose early, prepared for work with her usual efficiency, and departed with minimal communication beyond logistical necessities. But something had changed over the weekend. Her energy seemed different, more confident, like someone who'd made important decisions and was comfortable with their implications. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then called Mountain View Spa Resort again. "Good morning, Mountain View Spa. How may I help you?" "Hi, I called Friday evening asking about my wife, Victoria Mercer. I'm wondering if you might have missed her reservation under a different name or booking reference. Let me check all our weekend guests again. No, sir, I don't see anyone matching that description. We were actually quite slow this weekend, only about 30% occupancy. Could you describe your typical weekend guests? I'm trying to understand if my wife might have been there but registered differently. Most of our weekend guests were couples, actually. We had very few single women or female friends traveling together. Couples. Victoria had spent the weekend somewhere that catered to romantic getaways, not female friendship retreats. The deception was more comprehensive than I'd initially understood. I spent Monday morning working on client projects, but concentration proved impossible. Victoria had lied about her weekend destination, companions, and activities. She was systematically deceiving me while maintaining the appearance of normal marriage, which suggested planning that extended beyond temporary exploration. At noon, I drove to EV Fitness and requested to speak with Ethan. Stephanie informed me he was with a client but would be available in 30 minutes. I waited in the reception area, observing the flow of members and noting the demographic patterns Martin had mentioned, mostly attractive women, several of whom seemed to receive significant personal attention from staff. Ethan emerged from the training area at 12:30, greeting me with professional courtesy that contained subtle wariness. Thomas, good to see you again. How can I help you? I wanted to follow up on our consultation. I'm definitely interested in membership, but I have some questions about scheduling. Of course. Let's talk in my office. He led me to the same space where we'd met Wednesday, closing the door and settling behind his desk with the focused attention of someone prepared for potentially difficult conversation. What scheduling questions can I answer? I'm trying to coordinate my gym visits with my wife's routine. Victoria mentioned she's been working with you 3 times per week? That's right. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. And this past weekend? Did she mention her spa trip during your Friday session? Ethan's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, professional mask slipping slightly to reveal something that might have been concern or calculation. We don't typically discuss clients' personal travel plans during training sessions. But Victoria did mention she was going away for the weekend. She might have mentioned something about weekend plans. I don't recall the specific details. Ethan was being deliberately vague, probably recognizing that the conversation had moved beyond casual husband inquiry into potentially problematic territory. The reason I ask is that Victoria seemed particularly excited about this spa weekend, more enthusiastic than usual about time away from home. Many clients find that regular exercise increases their energy and enthusiasm for various activities, including activities they might not have been interested in before starting their fitness routine. Absolutely. Physical improvement often leads to increased confidence about trying new experiences. Ethan's responses were professionally appropriate but carefully neutral, like someone avoiding topics that might reveal information he wasn't supposed to share. Victoria's definitely more confident lately, more willing to pursue individual interests without considering how they might affect our marriage. Personal growth sometimes requires individuals to prioritize their own goals rather than always accommodating others' expectations. His response echoed Victoria's recent philosophy and Trina's divorced woman wisdom, suggesting conversations that had extended beyond exercise instruction into personal development and relationship evaluation. And you support clients who decide their marriages might be constraining their personal growth? Ethan paused, probably recognizing that the question had moved into territory where his response could have significant consequences. I support clients who want to become their best selves, whatever that means for their individual circumstances. Even if becoming their best selves involves ending their marriages? Thomas, I think this conversation is moving beyond my role as a fitness professional. If you have concerns about your marriage, you should discuss them with Victoria directly. I would, except Victoria seems to be discussing her marriage concerns with other people instead of with me. Ethan stood, indicating the conversation was over. I think you should schedule that trial membership we discussed and focus on your own fitness goals rather than analyzing your wife's training routine. I left EV Fitness with confirmation that Ethan was providing Victoria with more than exercise instruction. His knowledge of her personal situation, his philosophical support for individual growth over marital accommodation, and his defensive responses to my questions suggested involvement that extended beyond professional trainer-client relationships. I drove home and spent the afternoon updating my documentation, then began planning the confrontation that was becoming inevitable. Victoria was lying about her activities, possibly having an affair, and systematically preparing to end our marriage while maintaining the appearance of normal domestic life. At 5:30, Victoria's Honda pulled into our driveway. She entered through the garage carrying her gym bag, displaying the familiar energetic glow that accompanied EV Fitness visits. "Good workout?" I asked. "Excellent. Ethan introduced me to new strength training techniques." "How is Ethan? I stopped by the gym today and had another conversation with him." Victoria stopped mid-sentence, her expression shifting from enthusiasm to something that might have been alarm. "You went to the gym again? Why?" "To ask Ethan about your weekend spa trip." "You asked Ethan about my personal travel plans?" Her tone carried indignation that seemed disproportionate to my stated inquiry, like I'd violated important boundaries by discussing her activities with her trainer. "I was curious whether you'd mentioned your excitement about the weekend to him during your Friday session. What I discuss with Ethan during training is private conversation. You had no right to involve him in your suspicions about my activities." Victoria's response confirmed that she viewed her relationship with Ethan as private territory that I wasn't supposed to access or analyze. The kind of protective reaction someone might have about relationships they valued and wanted to shield from outside interference. "Suspicions about your activities? Whatever paranoid concerns you're developing about my gym membership and social activities with friends. Like your spa weekend with Trina? What about it?" "I called Mountain View Spa Resort Victoria. They have no record of reservations under your name or Trina's name. You weren't there this weekend." Victoria's face went through several expressions: surprise, calculation, and finally something that looked like resignation mixed with defiance. "So, you're investigating my whereabouts now? Checking up on me like I'm some kind of criminal?" "I'm trying to understand why my wife is lying about her weekend activities. I don't owe you detailed reports about how I spend my time. You owe me honesty about whether you're having an affair." The words hung in the kitchen air, like smoke from a fire that had been smoldering for weeks. Victoria stared at me with expressions that cycled through anger, defiance, and something that might have been relief that the pretense was finally ending. "An affair?" "With Ethan, or someone else. The pattern is pretty clear, Victoria. New clothes, extended absences, lies about your whereabouts, emotional distance from our marriage. Classic indicators that you're involved with another person." Victoria was quiet for several seconds, probably calculating whether to continue denying or acknowledge what we both knew was true. "And what if I am?" Her response wasn't denial or explanation. It was challenge, like someone who'd been planning this confrontation and was prepared to defend choices she'd already made. "Then our marriage is over." "Maybe it's been over for a long time, Thomas. Maybe I'm just finally admitting what we've both been avoiding." "I haven't been avoiding anything. You're the one who declared, 'Not tonight, not anymore,' and started systematically withdrawing from our relationship." "I withdrew because there was nothing left to withdraw from. We've been roommates for years, going through domestic motions without any real connection or passion." Victoria's words carried the conviction of someone who'd been rehearsing these justifications, possibly with Trina, possibly with Ethan, possibly with both. "So you decided to find passion elsewhere instead of working on our marriage." "I decided to find out what I was missing instead of accepting that this was all life had to offer." And what you were missing was Ethan? Victoria studied my expression with analytical attention, probably evaluating whether complete honesty would be more or less complicated than continued deception. Ethan helped me remember what it feels like to be desired and appreciated instead of taken for granted. So, you are having an affair with him. I'm exploring a relationship that makes me feel alive, instead of settling for one that makes me feel invisible. Victoria's admission carried no apology or guilt, only explanation of choices she'd apparently decided were justified by our marriage's perceived inadequacies. How long? Does it matter? It matters to me. 3 weeks, since the second week of my gym membership. 3 weeks of systematic deception while maintaining the appearance of normal marriage. 3 weeks of lying about her whereabouts, her activities, and her emotional involvement with another person. And this weekend? We went to a resort in the mountains, not the spa I mentioned, obviously. Victoria moved through the kitchen with the restless energy of someone who'd been constrained and was finally free to speak honestly about choices she'd been hiding. Thomas, I'm not going to apologize for finding someone who appreciates me and makes me feel valued. You stopped seeing me years ago. Ethan sees me. I see you. You see a wife who handles domestic responsibilities and maintains social appearances. Ethan sees a woman with desires and capabilities you've never bothered to notice. Victoria's justification emphasized emotional needs that our marriage had allegedly failed to meet, framing her affair as response to my inadequacies rather than betrayal of our partnership. So this is my fault? This is nobody's fault. This is two people who grew apart and one person who decided to find connection elsewhere instead of pretending everything was fine. What do you want, Victoria? Divorce? She paused, probably considering whether to reveal complete plans or maintain some strategic ambiguity. I want to explore this relationship and see where it leads without feeling guilty about betraying a marriage that stopped serving either of us years ago. Translation: you want to have your affair while keeping the security and social respectability of marriage. I want to make decisions about my life based on what makes me happy instead of what maintains appearances or protects others' feelings. Victoria left the kitchen and headed upstairs, ending the confrontation before it could develop into negotiation about our marriage's future. She'd revealed her affair, justified it through criticism of our relationship, and declared her intention to continue pursuing individual happiness, regardless of how her choices affected our partnership. I remained in the kitchen, processing the conversation and its implications. Victoria wasn't ending our marriage immediately, but she was systematically preparing for that possibility while maintaining the practical benefits of our shared life until she decided whether her relationship with Ethan offered sufficient long-term potential. Not tonight, not anymore, had revealed its ultimate meaning. Not just physical and emotional intimacy, but loyalty, honesty, and commitment to our partnership. Victoria had already divorced herself from our marriage emotionally and physically. Legal divorce was just a matter of timing and logistics. I poured bourbon and returned to my office, where I opened a new document and began planning my response to Victoria's systematic betrayal. She'd made her choices based on individual desires without considering their impact on our shared life. Time to show her that choices have consequences, and that underestimating people can be a dangerous mistake. The investigation phase was over. The response phase was beginning.